Today, we're doing a dive into something pretty fascinating, I think. It's this paradox that happens when a really sacred local ritual practice gets pulled into, well, the global marketplace.
Right, and we're focusing on a specific example, the Essaouira Gnawa festival. Our sources use this term, fetishized, to describe what's happened to the Gnawa ritual and trance practice there.
Fetishized. Sounds a bit academic, maybe.
It does, but what it really gets at is how something deeply spiritual, really meaningful in its original context gets, well, stripped
down.
Yeah, detached from that context. It becomes almost purely a commodity, something bought and sold. And it turns into this kind of symbolic capital, mostly for international tourists and the industry built around them.
Right, and that's the core paradox we need to get our heads around. How does this deeply sacred all-night healing ceremony, meant for spirits, transform into a major headlining act?
Yeah, a commercially successful spectacle at this huge international music festival.
It's a big question. So our mission today is to kind of trace that journey, that transformation. And I guess we have to start at the beginning. Who are the Gnawa people? What's their traditional practice actually like?
Okay, so the Gnawa, they're essentially a sub-Saharan population in Morocco. Their history is deeply tied to people brought north, largely as slaves, mainly around the 15th and 16th centuries.
Okay.
Though some also arrived, freely along the old caravan routes. It's a story of diaspora, of forced migration.
And that history is present at the festival.
Or that's a crucial point. The festival tends to emphasize the African diaspora connection, which is true. But the specific, painful history of chattel slavery, particularly in a place like Essaouira, which used to be Mogador, a major slave port, that often gets, glossed over. It's often unvoiced.
Okay. So their traditional practice connects back to this complex history. They're Muslims.
Yes, they are Muslims, but their practice incorporates these African spiritual traditions. They use ritual music, specific incense, to heal people believed to be possessed by spirits. The term is maskun, meaning inhabited.
Right, maskun.
And the main healing ceremony is called the Laila. You might also hear it called Derdebalela. It's traditionally an all-night thing.
All night. Wow.
Yeah. And the music is absolutely central. It's got this distinctive pentatonic scale, very rhythmic, very intense. It's a kind of spiritual syncretism, actually.
Syncretism.
Yeah.
Like you see in the Americas, Santeria, Candomblé.
Exactly like that, yeah. Where African deities or spirits might wear the mask of Catholic saints, for instance. Here, it's within an Islamic framework, but with these deep African spiritual roots.
And the sound itself. The instruments must be key to that identity.
Totally. You've got the malem, that means the master playing the main instrument.
Hashuj, okay.
Yeah.
That's the stringed one.
Yeah, it's a 3-stringed lute, kind of bass-like, but it drives the rhythm too. And then you have a whole group, usually men, backing him up. They sing responses and play the kwakab.
Ah, the kwakab. Those are the really distinctive metal castanet things, right? Horseshoe-shaped.
That's them, heavy metal, and they create this incredibly complex, driving, almost clanking percussive layer. It's instantly recognizable.
So traditionally, to be a malam, a master, you needed more than just musical skill. You needed something called tegnawit. Can you explain that?
Right. Tegnawit, it basically translates to Gnawaness.
Yeah.
It signifies this really advanced stage of ritual mastery.
So not just playing the notes.
Not at all. It's deep, intimate knowledge of the spirit world, knowing the specific musical phrases to call specific spirits, understanding the whole protocol for the ceremony, how to manage the trance states, how to keep everyone safe. It's what separates, a truly authentic spiritual leader from someone who's just a technically good musician.
Okay, Tagnawit. But here's where things start to get complicated, right? Because that traditional understanding, it kind of exploded when the music went global.
It really did. Historically, becoming a Malam, earning that title, that respect, took decades of deep study, apprenticeship within the ritual context. But then, starting around the 1960s, Gnawa music got discovered.
Discovered by?
By Western musicians initially. Think American and British rock stars. Jimi Hendrix famously spent time in Essaouira. Later, African-American jazz musicians really connected with it too.
Okay, so this outside interest, it changed things internally.
Hugely. Because this external appreciation, focused purely on the sound, effectively started to pull the musical knowledge away from the ritual knowledge. The two became disentangled.
Ah, I see. So you could become an amazing hashut player, technically brilliant, known internationally maybe.
Exactly.
But lack that deep spiritual grounding, the actual Tagnawit needed to lead a real healing Lila.
Precisely. It creates this gap. It's like the difference between being, say, a priest who understands the liturgy and theology and being an incredible vocalist who can sing the hymns beautifully but doesn't grasp the deeper meaning.
Or maybe like being a spiritual guide versus being a rock star playing spiritually inspired music.
That's a good way to put it. And this leads right back to that core tension at the festival, because many contemporary performers, even if they lack that deep traditional Tagnawit, they often lean really heavily on the language of trance and possession when they're marketed or when they perform on stage.
Why? Because it sells.
Well, yeah. To be blunt, the sacred sells. The idea of trance, of spiritual ecstasy, is incredibly appealing, especially to Western audiences seeking something authentic.
So authenticity becomes an aesthetic, something you perform rather than an internal spiritual state you embody through years of practice.
Exactly. The source talks about the effervescence, the excitement, shifting. It moves away from those intimate, private healing ceremonies.
Towards the big, loud, public festival stage.
Right. Towards the spectacle. And it's lucrative. Many young Gnawa musicians today might aspire less to be a local healer and more towards international tours, collaborations with famous names, getting record deals.
Because the healing aspect, the community cohesion part of the traditional Lila, that doesn't really pay the bills.
Not in the same way. But the commodified aesthetic, the performance of trance, that's become highly valuable in the global music market.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the place itself, Essaouira. The setting for all this.
Yeah, Essaouira is key. It's a coastal city, historically known as Mogador, always been a crossroads.
A port city.
Right. It was a Portuguese outpost way back, a significant stop on the trans-Saharan slave routes, as we mentioned, and it also had a very large and influential Jewish population historically.
So a history of mixing cultures.
Definitely. And that history of tolerance, of cosmopolitanism, is something that's actively promoted today, especially in relation to the festival.
And there's political backing for that image and for the festival itself.
Oh, absolutely. The festival started back in 1998, and it gets significant support right from the top. The current mayor, Andre Azoulay, is quite influential. He's Jewish and serves as a counselor to the Moroccan king.
So the festival fits into a larger national narrative.
Yes. It helps project this image of Morocco as culturally open, moderate, tolerant. That's important both for international relations and, domestic identity.
And the sheer size of this event is just mind-boggling. You said up to 400,000 people.
Yeah, over just a few days. It requires massive infrastructure. They've literally built hotels just to handle the influx of tourists for the festival.
An entire economy.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the festival itself thrives on these collaborations. You'll see a famous Gnawa Malam like Hassan Hakmoun playing with, say, an Indian tabla player, or you'll have Cuban jazz pianists like Omar Sosa, even reggae legends like the Wailers sharing the stage with Gnawa groups.
The goal being?
To create this kind of hybrid transcultural sound experience, often aiming for that trance state through the music itself.
Okay, so if you have hundreds of thousands of people coming for this trance experience, what happens to the actual sacred ceremony, the Lila, when it meets mass tourism on that scale? Does it just get swamped?
It doesn't survive in its original form, no. It has to be transformed. And this was a conscious process. Early on, the first few festivals did try to include more direct ritual elements.
Like what?
Things like a public sacrifice of a sheep, which is part of the traditional opening, and holding actual all-night lilas in the Zawiya, the Gnawa sanctuary or lodge.
How did that go down?
It caused problems. A lot of conflict, actually. Traditional masters, elders in the community, they objected. They felt it was making a public spectacle out of something deeply serious, even dangerous.
Danger how?
There's a real belief you could anger the spirits by playing their music outside the proper ritual context or by doing it performatively for entertainment rather than for genuine healing, turning sacred work into, cheap fun.
Okay, so there was pushback from within the Gnawa community itself.
Definitely. And so the community leaders and the festival organizers essentially negotiated a change. They adapted the ritual for the public stage.
Oh.
It became what's known in Gnawa terms as a fraja.
A fraja?
Yeah, fraja. It literally means a show, a spectacle, entertainment. It's a way of marking the difference between the real sacred Leela and the performance put on for outsiders, for tourists.
So the thing billed as a Layla at the festival isn't really a Layla?
Not in the full traditional sense. The fraja version is much shorter, maybe just a few hours, not all night. It usually omits the public sacrifice. And crucially, it doesn't invoke the entire pantheon of spirits, which is a very complex and potentially risky part of the real Leela. It becomes a curated aesthetic taste of the ritual, protecting the core practice by differentiating it.
But that spectacle, the fraja, that's what fuels the economy.
Absolutely. It drives massive economic development for Essaouira and for the musicians involved. You see this whole industry spring up around it.
Like what kind of...
Well, Gnawa art, paintings, sculptures, and tons of merchandise, t-shirts, hats, often with those colorful wool dreadlocks attached, miniature hajus or crock instruments. The sacred, or at least its image, is undeniably a commodity.
It's become a springboard, as one source put it, for the local economy.
A critical one. And this commodification helps us grasp this concept the sources call the festive sacred.
Okay, the festive sacred. What is that exactly?
It's not religious practice in the orthodox sense, like going to a mosque or a church. It's more like a modern quest for transcendence that borrows the feeling, the emotional intensity, maybe the communal vibe of religion.
But without the strict rules or beliefs.
Exactly. Without the doctrine, the dogma, the long-term commitment, it positions culture, particularly music and shared experience, as a valid pathway to something that feels spiritual.
So the festival goers are like secular pilgrims.
That's a really good way to think about it, yeah. They want that emotional high, that sense of connection and release, that spiritual uplift maybe, but detached from any specific religious ideology.
It's a kind of portable sacredness.
Right. A mobile, transnational idea of the sacred. And interestingly, it often functions as a kind of counterbalance or an alternative to more conservative, orthodox religious expressions.
And this has political dimensions too, you mentioned, for Morocco itself. The monarchy supports this.
They're heavily invested. Supporting these huge international festivals helps the statecraft, that public image we talked about, modern, cosmopolitan, open, neoliberal. But it also serves a purpose domestically.
How so? Like keeping people happy?
Sort of. It functions almost like a political safety valve. Yes, it brings in tourist money, which is vital, but it also occupies the youth, offers this exciting, large-scale public culture that can help diffuse social tensions or potential unrest.
It projects a moderate Islam to the world.
While providing a controlled outlet for youthful energy and potential dissent at home, it's quite strategic.
But surely that kind of cultural liberalization doesn't happen without some friction. Is there pushback from more conservative elements?
Oh, definitely. These festivals are kind of the antithesis of religious conservatism. There was that incident back in 2004, remember, when a very prominent imam at the Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca publicly condemned music festivals, calling them un-Islamic.
Right.
So these events become contested spaces. They're testing grounds for debates about cultural freedom, morality, and what defines the sacred versus the profane in contemporary Morocco.
Okay, let's circle back to the audience, the international crowd, these festive faithful traveling all the way to Essaouira. What's the big draw for them? You mentioned the promise of sonic translation.
Yes, this is really the engine driving the global appeal. It's this deep-seated hope, maybe subconscious even, that music, especially rhythm, can communicate sacred feelings, that deep effect across languages, across cultures, across beliefs.
You don't need to understand the words or the history.
To feel the power of the rhythm in your body, right? That's the promise.
And you mentioned that Gnawa often form the rhythmic heart of these international collaborations, those krokab rhythms. You said a triplet feel over a 44 beat. Can you break that down?
Yeah, it creates this incredible polyrhythmic tension. So think of a standard beat you can count easily. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty straightforward. The krokab, those metal castanets, are often playing patterns based in 3 against that 4, like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. It creates this rolling, cyclical, really complex feel that floats over the basic pulse but is also incredibly driving.
So it pulls you in, but it's not straightforward.
Exactly. It disrupts expectations, especially Western rhythmic habits. And that complexity, that intensity is very effective physiologically for inducing altered states for trance.
And this mix of sounds, the Gnawa rhythms with, say, jazz or rye, it requires a certain kind of listening, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The source called it a literacy of listening.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. The audience, especially the world music fans, needs to be able to sort of hear the different ingredients in the mix to recognize, that's the Gnawa krokab. Okay, now there's a blues guitar lick. That horn line sounds North African.
World music itself has kind of trained audiences for this hybridity.
It really has. It's built that bridge. And even with all the changes, the security, the commercial focus, the Lila becoming the Fraja, the core marketing message, the ultimate lure remains trance.
It comes back to the fetish of trance.
Absolutely. That's the main signifier used to promote the festival. People travel enormous distances specifically to trance out, as they might say, to consume the sacred.
Looking for that Essaouira spirit, peace, connection, harmony.
Exactly. And the physical experience of the music, the trance state, however superficial or performative it might be compared to the original Lila, it anchors that promise of connection right in your body, in your muscle memory. It bypasses the need for deep understanding.
The feeling.
You buy the feeling, the affective experience. People go home feeling changed, feeling connected, and that feeling feels authentic, even if the deep ritual knowledge behind it has been sidelined or lost in translation.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture here? The Essaouira Gnawa Festival seems like this incredibly potent example.
Yeah, a near-perfect case study, really.
Of how culture, politics, economics, and even religious ideas all get tangled together in our current world of late capitalism and mass tourism.
Exactly. The deep local knowledge that Tagnowit might be fading or transforming in its original context.
But the aesthetic power, the sound, the image of the trance gets massively amplified on the world stage.
And that amplification is fueled by us, by you, the listener, the audience member, acting like those modern-day pilgrims.
Right. People sacrifice their time, their money to make the journey.
And they come back with souvenirs, auditory ones like CDs or digital downloads, but also physical things, the T-shirts, the little instruments, the hats. They become like relics, tangible reminders of the pilgrimage, preserving the memory through material culture.
The sacred travels light now, doesn't it?
Right.
Detached from its original context, its traditions, its specific ideologies.
It certainly seems that way in this case.
So maybe the final thought to leave people with is this. If we are all participating in some way in consuming this kind of detached, commodified sacredness, whether it's Gnawa music or other forms of world music or global culture, what responsibility do we have? What responsibility do we as consumers have to understand the local roots, the ethical complexities, the knowledge systems that actually made that powerful performance possible in the first place?
That's a heavy question.
It is something to definitely think about as you go out and listen and maybe do your own deep dive into the music you love.